Hello everyone, welcome to this week's edition of In Studio Live, the what is it, the 67th edition. Wow, have we really been going that long? I want to give a very special welcome to all the new members of the Facebook group this week. Peter in France has been sending out invites like they're going out of fashion. So thank you to Peter, and welcome everyone who is new. Now, let me try and just explain one thing. The display you're seeing on the screen at the moment, the regulars will know, is a little bit different to normal. That's because I'm about to do a live demo, and I've got the cameras all pointing in the wrong directions, as it were. But we'll sort all that out as we go along. Right, so what's happening tonight? Well, our theme is oil and water abstracts, and that's the demo that I'm going to be doing. But if we've got any new members on the stream tonight, watching it either on replay or live, could you just do me a favour, folks, and hit that subscribe button, hit that bell button so you get notified when I post new videos to the channel, and also hitting like and commenting, things like that. Tell the YouTube algorithm I'm doing a reasonable job, and helps get the channel seen by more people. So that'd be a real help to me if you can do that. And if you're not already a member of the Facebook group, if you're watching this and you want to know what the Facebook group is, the link down below, do join it, because there's various things going on there, including a challenge at the moment, which I'm going to say a little bit more about further on in the evening. And also I have a newsletter as well, again, link down below. You can sign up for that. Sorry, I keep having to glance over on this side because that's where my PowerPoints are, and my camera's over here for the demo. Right, so just to say, it is an interactive live stream, so if you're watching this live, do participate in the YouTube live chat if you're able to. Ask questions. If there are things that you want me to explain further, then put it all in there, and I can cover that as we go through. I keep an eye on it as we go through the session. Also, just let me know what you think as things are going through. That conversation's always good to have, isn't it? So, what have we got on the show tonight? Well, tonight, first of all, I'm doing this live demo of the oil and water abstracts, and anything could happen with this, folks, because I've got 4 cameras going all at the same time, and I'm switching using, I don't know, yes, you can just about see it, my Streambox, which is allowing me to switch through cameras and do all sorts of clever things. So let's see how we go with that. I'm going to be talking about the next exercise in our before and after challenge. This is something I've got going to help everyone with their photography. Take your photography to the next level by doing some basic photographic exercises. I'm going to then, after that, be doing some image feedback as well. Some of the images that have been sent during the week to me, and particularly ones from the Facebook group as well. I will be going through, adding a few comments about them, explaining a few things on those, what works, what doesn't. And right at the very end, I have got the member photo of the week. That's the banner on the Facebook group. And I'll announce that right at the end. So whose image is it going to be? It could be yours. Right, let's get started with this. Whoops, go back one. Let's get started with our topic for tonight, which is these abstracts, these oil and water abstracts. And we've got an example up there on the screen, and they take different forms, but they look really almost like otherworldly, like planets in the sky, things like that. Lots of different forms that they can take. And so let's get on with the live demo. This is the point where I find out whether everything works with my multi-camera setup. So move things around just a little bit. and I need to stand where the cameras can see me. So now you've got 4 screens on there. We've got the main camera over here, which is the one when I'm just talking to camera, I will talk over there. I've got a camera over here, which is just about capturing me, which shows the whole setup area. I've got the a little GoPro camera down here, which is showing you the inside of the dish. And finally, if I nip over here and change my screen on there, the 4th camera is good old Lightroom, which we'll be tethering in a little while. Right, let me just explain the setup that we've got here for this demo. It's basically oil and water, that's all there is to it, but how do we do the photos? Well, we start off with a dish like this. Just plain dish. Now, when you buy something like this, you need to be very careful to make sure it's not one that's got Pyrex written underneath it, because that will come through on your images. Mine has got one little mark from the manufacturing in there, but I've managed to shoot round it, and it's small enough that if it does appear in any shot, I can clone it out. So that's what we're using. Now, you'll notice it's on a couple of boxes to just raise it up. Because the way this works is we're going to have oil and water in here, but we're going to then put something underneath it to show to be the colours in there. But we need that out of focus. So that's why we need a distance between. So I've just put it on a couple of boxes. Right, so we now, I want to get the camera going, so let me switch that on. I'm going to go into, right, everything's still going, I hope. I'm going to go into live view on here, which won't show you very much at the moment. Are we on? No, that's it. My display wasn't showing up for me on here. No, it's still not. Right, let me go to tether on here and then we can get that going properly. Tethered capture, start tethered capture, standard sort of details in there, and OK. Right, it's found the camera. Right, so if I go live on there, that's better. And all it's showing you in there is just basically looking down onto my table in the dish. I'm bringing it in so I haven't got edges on there, and I need to move that up just a little bit on there. Right, so first thing to do with all this is we need to put some water into the dish. So I've got a jug of water, and I'll just pour that in. And you just want a little layer of water in there. It doesn't need to be a huge amount. And hopefully you can see that on both the live view on the main camera and on the from the GoPro as well. Next, we want to add the water, the oil into there. So I've got a little jug of oil. It's just cooking oil, stuff I've kept in the studio for a while. I have a little spoon in there, which you'll see the reason for that in a short while, but I'm just going to add in a few drops of water, just of oil onto the water. And if I can get them coming as little droplets like that, so much the better. But if not, I can generate those in a while. Whoa, that's a lot. That will do nicely on there. So now I've got water, and you can just about see some of those appearing on the screen with that. So I'm just going to try and focus in on them. There you can see they're coming into focus on there. And they're moving around, right? That's not a problem. Now we need something underneath it to act as our background on there. And you can use all sorts of things for this. Bits of wrapping paper on there. So, camera one. So I've got a happy birthday wrapping paper. This is one of my favourites. It was a charity bag, but it got the Union flag on it. use the flag for your own country if you wish. It's just for the colours actually. Again, other types of wrapping paper, but you can also use magazines. Now, I've got here a Pixapro essential photo guide, which I will use later as part of one of my backgrounds on that. So I'm just going to start with something nice and simple, and I'm going to put down, let's go with a little bit of Christmas wrapping paper in there. Fold it up a little bit so it goes relatively flat. So now we've got some colour behind there with that. Go back to all four screens. So we've got the paper underneath. Now what about lighting for this? I'm using a studio light. I'm using one of the Pixapro Lumi 400s for this from Essential Photo. I've got their trigger on there and receiver, so I can actually control the light from the camera. But in reality, I just want it on its lowest possible setting for this, because ideally I want my aperture to be as wide open as possible. So I've set it to its lowest value, and I'm bouncing it off a bit of white card on the back there, just because I want diffused light. Now, I could do this by putting a softbox on the light, putting it behind my table, but because of the space I have available for a live stream, I've decided to just bounce it off a piece of white card. It works well, so that's not an issue on there. You could do this with a speed light. You could even do it with just natural light, window light on there. The only thing to caution about doing it with natural light is if the oil is moving, you have to wait for it to be static if you're going to do a long exposure, otherwise it will be blurred from the motion. Right, so that's my setup. So now what I need to do is get some oil droplets underneath where my camera is. So I'm just going to try moving things around a little bit on here. And there you can start to see we've got some interesting patterns appearing. We're more or less in focus there, so I could just come out of live view, if it will allow me. It's being a pain on the camera, so I'll have to do it over here and take the shot. And hopefully, if I go there. Right, now what I can see on that is I'm overexposed with it. So I need to change some settings. I'm going to do this all over on the screen so that you can see what I'm doing. So if I head onto here, that's overexposed, so I'm going to change my shutter speed to 6.3 on there and just try that again. Right, now that blob there, I think, is the imperfection on the actual basin. So I'm going to try and reframe to avoid that. So, yeah, it definitely is. So move over. Right, we need to be back into live view. Why it's not doing it from the camera at the moment, I've no idea. But right, I've got some droplets in there. Let's try and move those over into the area that I want. Right, move that around, I'll get some smaller drops, which is great. Something like that. Those shapes go through. Why is this deciding it does not wish to fire from the camera? So you can see we're starting to build up an edge. Now I've got an edge of the dish, so I'm bringing that down. There we go. Right. We can see what we're doing on here. That's looking quite good. So let's go with that. And the switching in and out of live view is not good, folks. So yeah, that's now starting to look quite interesting on there. And you see how we get those sort of abstract images created with it. Now I can change out what I've got down there for something else. Go with something like that. I have a display on my screen, so I can actually see to line this up, and that's not bad at all. So take a shot. Yay! Yes, it is working from the camera now, finally. Why it wasn't before, I don't know. Now, I really like how, with this, you can see little parts of the thing reflected in the bubbles on there. So, if I just blow on that, or just get it to move a little bit, maybe change the pattern around with that. I can take another shot. And you see, you just keep going with this sort of thing to create a pattern that you want. Now, as I'm using Pixar Pro gear to do this, let me show you something with the magazine. So what I've got here, okay, I'll switch cameras so you can see this a little bit better, is a nice ad in the magazine for Studio Flash, and I'm going to use that as my background. So you can use anything really, and I fold that over something like that and force that through under there. Hopefully you could see that going in on the, oh no you couldn't because I haven't gone back to the full camera shot. So I've popped that underneath like that, and ideally I'd like it flatter than it is, but it's not going to do it. Something like that should do. So what I'm aiming to try and get now is the blue, the red, and that little bit of white in there. So I'm going to reposition the camera to get that to about there. Am I in focus? I'm going to go to live view on the screen here so I can check my focusing, right, and check my framing for that matter. So I wanted the red, white and blue, but in stripes. So blue, red and white from it. Just move the camera a little bit. So we end up with something like that. Use the spoon to try and get a few more drops near where I want it. So that's my area. Just see what I get round there. Break that up a little bit. And as that settles, I should be able to just get a few shots of that. If I come out of live view, that's not looking bad at all. I rather like that one. Take another. Right, I'm just going to have a check on chat and see what's going on in there, see if there's been any questions coming in as I've been doing this. So, for chat. Right, okay, what have we got? Right, we have questions here. Volume has just gone up. That's probably me talking down into the microphone like this a little bit more. So hopefully it's sorted itself out. Andy Grady wants to know, have I bought into Pixar Pro lighting, or has Mr. Bradbury lent me some? No, these are actually my own lights, which I got secondhand off another photographer, and I've been very, very happy with the Pixar Pro gear, and is probably where I would go for any future lighting. Cost effective and works well. And not only that, it's compatible with Mr. B next door, so we can share resources on there. Oh, and Rich has just answered the question on there. Right. Oh, the volume is lower on this screen than the 4 screen. Ah, right, maybe the levels are just a little bit set differently on them. My apologies for the change in levels. This will all sort itself out shortly. Right, what I'm going to do at this point is, one thing I can see now I'm close up to my screen, if I go there, you can see not quite in critical focus on that shot with this. This is because I'm trying to do it as a demo rather than taking the time to make sure my focus is absolutely spot on with it. But I wanted to show you the idea more than anything else on that. So, right. What I want to do as a final thing with the demo is just to run through a couple of bits and pieces on it, which means just to remind you what the key things of being able to do this. Have a clear bottom container. If it's got Pyrex on it, you'll get Pyrex on your images on there. It needs to be raised 15 to 30 centimeters above the item you're going to use for the colour. You put a coloured item, and as you can see, it can be almost anything. I used wrapping paper, I used a bag from a charity shop, and I used a page from Pixarprose magazine on there. You put water droplets onto oil droplets onto the water and swirl them around with a spoon to create the patterns where you want them. And it's really as simple as that on there. Oh, right, somebody's saying I've hung. Oh, right, it's okay. Right, it's right, I think it's just Andy's end on that. Right, at this point, that's the end of the live demo on there, which has gone on about 20 minutes, which is what I thought it would be. So at this point, let's just move on with what we're going to be looking at tonight. Find the right slide. Which is, I want to carry on this discussion about my before and after challenge. Last week I talked about creating images of that sense of place, that location, which is going to be your benchmark for this whole challenge. This week I'm introducing your first photographic exercise, something that I want you to go out and do. And there'll be a series of 12 of these. I will release one a week over the coming weeks. Now, if you want to take part in this and you haven't done the location ones yet, your before images, then do those first. Don't worry if you end up a couple of weeks behind anyone else. It's more important that you do the exercises at your own pace and learn from it than try and keep up with everybody else on there. The video is going to stay on YouTube, so you can always refer to those whenever you want. So I'm going to play in the details of this week's exercise 1, all on composition. And then when we come back from that, I'll probably say just a few more things before we get into reviewing images. And hopefully during that time, I'll reset the studio back to how it normally is. So I've got my green screen behind me as I would normally have here. So hopefully this all works. With the press of a button, we should have the video. Hello, welcome to my before and after challenge. Let's talk about the rules of composition. Hello, welcome to In Studio. I'm Ian Butterfield, and this is the first challenge as part of my before and after challenge. If you haven't watched the initial video yet, and if you haven't created your before images yet, I'd really encourage you to do that. The link will be up on the screen, should be somewhere, well, up that direction, I should think. In that first video, I talked about the challenge as a whole and the need to create a set of 5 images at a known location. This is the first of the follow-on challenges or exercises that you need to do. And today I'm going to be talking about the rules of composition, or to be very specific, 3 different rules of composition. The first rule of composition I want to talk about is the rule of thirds. The importance of putting your horizon somewhere other than in the middle of your shot. And typically we want to use it on the third lines, and also putting your subject somewhere other than in the middle, typically on the third line over on one side or the other. Now, if you want more detail on this, I've got a link to some resources down below in the description of this video, which will take you to a much longer one where I talk about the rule of thirds. So do have a look on that. Just imagine your image divided by a noughts and crosses board. You're trying to put your subject on either one of the lines or one of the intersections on that noughts and crosses board. That's the rule of thirds. The next rule I want to talk about is framing. I don't mean putting your photo in a picture frame. I mean having an element on one or more sides of it which helps draw your attention to the image. So it might be some trees going over the top of the image, and that would act as framing. It might be an object on one side that would do it. A classic one is looking through a bridge, that sort of thing, but it doesn't have to be that. It can be some other element of framing. Again, resources down below will give you a bit more information on that. The third rule of composition I want to talk about is lead-in lines. And what are lead-in lines? Well, it's typically where you've got an element that draws the eye towards your subject. So classic examples of that might be railings, fences, roads even, or footpaths, again drawing the eye towards your subject. So what's this exercise that I'm going to get you to do today? So what is this challenge? Well, the challenge is to find a subject. Doesn't matter what it is. I've chosen the hall here at Vernon Park. Once you've chosen your subject, I want you then to photograph it 3 times using each of the different rules of composition. First of all, rule of thirds, then framing, and then lead-in lines. So here I've got a number of options. For rule of thirds, from where I am now, I can just frame it so that the house is on that intersection of the noughts and crosses board. For the lead-in lines, I'm hoping to use the roadway for that. And for framing, well, there's the possibility of the trees, but I wonder whether that magnificent frog down there might work as a framing device. So, come with me and let's see how I get on creating my 3 images for this challenge. Right, that's the lead-in lines. I've got the path on the edge coming in from the corner. Okay, so I've just got my final shot to create now, which is my framing shot. And I've decided I'm going to use this magnificent frog as my framing device. Now, hopefully this will show you that framing doesn't have to be something all the way round. In this case, it's just on one side. So I'm going to crouch down here, get the shot with the frog looking at the hall, and that should be my framing shot. And there we go. I'm done. I've got all 3 shots that I needed. So it's back to the studio to do the editing on them and to upload them to my Facebook group. So hopefully you're enjoying the challenge. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, then please do so, so that you'll get future updates of the other challenges as part of this before and after challenge. And I'll see you in the next video. And until then, keep making great photos. Bye for now. Right, okay, we're back with our standard setup. Wow, that took a little bit of work to reset the studio in that time. Right, okay, now I've got a slight problem that the chat's not updating for me on my screen. Let's see whether I can persuade it to do that. Right, yes, looks like that's back where it was now. I've got some updated. No, when it's in there, I can't see it. This is weird. Only got the beginning of the chats on there. Right, I can get it though by doing a pop out. Right, okay. I'll live with that for what I'm doing. It's just I like to keep an eye on the on what you're all saying as we're going through. Right, okay. So let's just talk a little bit about this before and after challenge. I know that some of you have said you're going to do it, but haven't yet submitted your before images. For those who don't know, the idea of the challenge is you do a set of 5 images of a particular location, then over a period of 12 weeks, you'll do a series of exercises, and they're designed as photographic exercises. It's the equivalent to what a musician would do with learning to play the scales. Sometimes we just need to do an exercise to learn with our photography. So these are all designed to help you learn. The first one, as you heard, was all about composition. I picked 3 different rules of composition. But I think even the most experienced photographers, very rarely, I know I've very rarely done it, where you choose one subject and deliberately use different techniques on it. And that will help you to think through a scene rather than just going for your obvious setup, thinking, well, how can I photograph this from different angles, different ways? And how do I choose my subject to work with something? So I look forward to seeing your images this week in the group, all about those 3 rules of composition, but one subject, 3 rules, and 3 separate photos, as you saw in the video. Right, let's move on. And yep, the chat there seems to be going okay. We've got a few people in there. Right. Yeah, Andy's problem appeared to have been at his end. Those who, all right, Terry wanted to know, can you put colouring in the water and oil? I've not tried that. I suspect it would just give you an overall colour on there with it. Right, and now my chat on the screen hasn't got down as far as everybody else. Oh, I don't know what's going on with chat, folks. I can see what's going on just about with you all. So let's just move on with what we're doing. And let's have a look at some of your images over in Lightroom. So let's bring up Lightroom, and I'm going to go through initially some of the before and after images that people have submitted and just give you a little bit of feedback on those. So the first set is from John Kiss, and if I go full screen and step through them. Now these are all at in Gatley, a place that I know, a park there, and he's taken sort of various shots. Buttercups, lovely bench shot there. I like the way the sun's glinting on there. It gives you a sense of place. Nice framing of the tree. This is what I was talking about in the video about using trees as a framing device on there. A general view of Gatley cars across, nice menacing sky on there. And again, a sort of lead-in line running through the park to some steps. So a nice set of images there, John, on that. Peter Stanford chose Daisy Nook, again, a place I know. So let's have a look at Peter's setup. It started off with the bridge and the stream. Looks like that's a fairly long exposure on there. Either that or there's not much flow on the water at the moment because it looks quite soft on it. I like the idea of the low angle that you've got on there and the sort of general view. This is looking down down the steps, I think, because we've got something on either side, but I can't quite tell what's going on with it on there. Maybe slightly underexposed on that one as well, Peter. And the bridge on there. Again, nice set, gives a nice flavour of the location and will act as a good benchmark. Now, this is your best image in the set of the bridge over the stream or canal at that point. I like the way the path leads you into it, and we've got the makings of an S shape because the path weaves round there. So nice compositional elements in that. And Robin went to yet another place that I know well, which is, oh, my mind's gone blank, the name of the hall on there. I actually filmed there in a TV show I was in with it. But this is looking down. Nice framing element, nice lead-in lines. Like the symmetry on this, it works really well, Robin. The side of the hall here. When I was filming, the tea station was positioned here, so I spent a lot of time round the corner from here, because at some points they were filming outside here, and we had to stay round there out of the way. If anyone wants to know, the programme was Cobra, and I was on set for 2 days and on screen for about 5 seconds. I like the gateway here leading us into the ornamental garden, and works really nicely on there. Now, this one, we had a bit of a discussion online about this image, and I think it would have been improved by shooting from slightly lower down. This is where live view on your camera comes in handy. You can put the camera low down without having to lie on the ground yourself, Robin, on there. And interesting sculpture with the water pouring from it, so interesting ideas on there as well. You've chosen to freeze the water on there. Might want to do something different with it if you go back on there. I'll talk about that in the coming weeks. So right, that's there, and the final ones are actually in Israel, in Jordan, and this is from Sippy, if I pronounced your name right, and it's the River Jordan. And yes, I've been there too. I love Israel. I've been there 4 times, but not for 20 years was last time I was there. So let's have a look through these. I think this is probably the strongest of the images, the little brook. So it leads us into the image, bit of framing from the trees on either side on there, showing the water bubbling and the plants on the banks here. I quite like the framing element on this, but the branch is sort of getting in the way a little bit. I wonder whether there might have been a better tree to use for that. Again, to me, I know what you're trying to get at with this, having been there, and the lushness and the fact there's so much greenery, which you don't think about as part of Israel, but it's a bit of a cluttered image, if I'm perfectly honest on there. I think just concentrate on one thing. What might have worked with this is a shallower depth of field for it. Again, nice shot. The sky's blown out, unfortunately. I think with it, what might have worked better would have been a tighter shot on there, just to concentrate more on the greenery with that. Maybe something like that, I don't know. So we've just got this area of greenery with it, perhaps. Not sure on that. So those are the ones from there. I had one of the things that I always say is, if you want me to give feedback on your images, if possible, email them to feedback@ians-studio.co.uk, because the images which I get from there have got all the shooting data in, so therefore I can give more and better constructive feedback on them with that. And I always give those priority when I go through. So let's have a look at some of those now. Oops, Move back. So back over to Lightroom. So the ones I got by email, there's only two. One from Paul, which was this swan. Now, Paul, you submitted a couple of swan images the other week. This one I think is a better one. It's nicely in focus. It's a little bit dark round the eyes on there, but not bad. It's one where you've got very dark blacks and a lot of white to it. So you're always going to have this problem of making sure the whites don't blow out, which was the problem you had last time, which you have managed to avoid, which is great. That's the way to shoot it. You need to do just a little bit of work in post-production. Now, I can do this in Lightroom, but just about any editing software will be able to do exactly the same thing. So let me go into the develop module with it. And basically, all we need to do is just bring up the shadows just a little bit and maybe add a little bit more clarity and possibly texture to it, just so that it brings that out. And maybe a bit of saturation. Just a touch on saturation, I think, on there. And that looks great now. So the before and after, and it's just brought out that detail in the rest of the image on there. The other one I got via email this week was from Peter Saltiel. And let's just have a look at the shooting data on this. With the EXIF. ISO 400, 120 millimeter, and at 320th of a second. Now, I would say on this, Peter, you could afford to have dropped your ISO by about 2 stops you'd have got away with, I should have thought, on there. I don't know whether there is much noise on there. It's not bad, actually, but it's always worth thinking about keeping your ISO as low as possible. Maybe even just 1 stop down to 200 will just help. There's a little bit of noise creeping in with it on there. I don't know whether this was an attempt at a quirky angle shot, but everything seems to be off at angles on it, and I'm not entirely sure that works with it. Now, I know you presented a couple of images which I think were crops from this one. I'd like to encourage you to do your cropping in camera rather than in post-production where you can. So whilst we can crop this to something like that. We're throwing away a lot of pixels to do it on there, but if you could have leant in a little bit closer with your camera and actually done that cropping in camera, that would have been much better with that one. So let's go have a checkup on chat if I can. Right, oh, it has updated. Right. Right. Yeah, clarification. Oh, the plants are slanted, says Peter. Oh, well. Yeah. Peter Stan was saying, yeah, it was a 4-second exposure. I thought it was with that one, with those images on there. But yeah, it's a difficult one to know what to do when they are slanted like that. They look as though they ought to be straight with it on there. I suppose it's because the background's out of focus, which it should be. That means it makes it a little bit difficult to tell on there with that. So just to say at this point, about the sponsorship of the live stream. I have to mention my sponsor each week, and this stream is sponsored by, as ever, yourselves. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been buying me a cuppa on there. I really, really do appreciate it. So if you are enjoying these live streams and you find value in them and you want to say thank you in a financial way to help me keep going, then you can buy me a cup of tea. And you do that by following the link down below, which is buymeatea.com/Ian Butty. It's basically buy me a coffee that everybody uses, but I don't drink coffee. And I always say thank you to someone who's bought me a cuppa. And this week I'm saying thank you to Tim Waters for today's cuppa. Cheers, Tim. Nice, I needed that. We've just looked at the chat. So let's move on and look at the feedback of the rest of the images which came in via Facebook. Now, as ever, I'll do these relatively quickly on there because I want to give the priority to the others, but there's some interesting and good points that I want to bring out on these. I love this shot. Oh, bring it up on the screen. Yeah, love this shot from Rick with, is it M? On there, that lovely laughter shot on there. The only thing I would say, Rick, is I prefer the extra space to be in front rather than behind on the shot. And personally, I don't like cropping through wrists as you've got there. I would tend to do a slightly tighter shot, maybe something like that, which balances it all up and focuses more on that laugh on there. John, one of your drone shots, really like this one. You've got the verticals vertical, you've got, it's a good composition with it, nice sky, nothing's blown out, well framed on there. So well done with that. Now, Ruskin, I know you'll be watching this on the replay. We're talking about this one and about framing. This area is catching my eye, so I would just bring this in slightly to somewhere like that. Now, I'm going to not stick to the same aspect ratio. I would probably go with a crop looking like this with it, maybe even in a little bit tighter. On there. There's less white to draw the eye. That is much more central in the image, and that band on the left hand side is not distracting at that point. John, love the shot, maybe just a tad dark on there. I know you said you've been playing around with the dehaze on it. I think maybe we need to bring back the vibrance just a touch with that. Nice shot. I like the long pano version with that. Petra, don't know whether you're watching this. This was a nice shot. You've been presenting some really nice images in the Facebook group. A couple of things just to say about this. I like the idea of the black area at the top. It acts as a framing device, which we were looking at earlier, but these bright areas tend to draw me away from the main subject, but it's an easy fix. So if I go into the develop module, I'm already in the develop module, and I use an adjustment brush. Now, this sort of thing's possible in other packages as well. And basically, double click to reset that, set the exposure right down and the shadows down and the highlights down. And we've got a nice feathered brush. I'm going to make it a little bit larger, and I can just paint those down just so that they don't act as a distraction on that image. Just taking those down just a little bit, and there the whole thing is framed so much better by doing that kind of trick to it. So come out of the adjustment brush, next image. Angelica, I love this one. The egg and the feather. The detail on it is all in there. Absolutely superb. I'm assuming it was done with available light, window light, bit of paper, both placed on there. I've got just a couple of small suggestions to it. It's a very blue image. I wonder what it would look like if we colour corrected it. That's too far, way too far. So I'm just going to bring that back to maybe somewhere like that with it. I think it was just a little touch too blue on the original image on it. And I would also think about just the crop on here. There's a white line at the bottom. I don't know whether that was part of a frame or something you just caught in there, but let's lose that and just tighten it up just that little bit. And I would go with something like that on there with it. And that is just a wonderful shot, one that you should be proud of, Angelica. Or Angelica. I don't know which way it's supposed to be pronounced, first or second. Anne-Marie, we've talked a little bit about these on the Facebook group, the light coming from behind. Backlighting on a subject is something I really, really like. And when I'm in the studio, I tend to make that happen myself with a bit of backlighting, rim lighting on there. Now, I think this one could be improved even further with a tighter crop to it. This section here, I don't think is adding much. So undo the padlock. If we went with something like that, I think that is a better composition for it, because it brings you in to the particular images, the parts that are of focus on there. Sonia, I know you say you're mainly an underwater photographer. And what a cracking image it was you shared from the underwater one. This is a nice shot, but I'd like to see a little bit more of the foreground on here. And I think it's just a tad underexposed. If we look at the histogram on here, you can see there's a lot of space up at the top. So if I bring the exposure up, we can see that I think works a little bit better on there. Just maybe a touch more clarity to it. And maybe a little bit more saturation, not much, just a touch on that. I love the fact you've got your verticals just about vertical on there. If I want to get them completely vertical, I could, it's not done much actually on that. Auto, what does that do? Not a lot. I'd do it guided then. And I'll just draw those verticals in from there to there. And then constrain crop, and we've got them perfectly vertical on there with that. So nice image, just needs a little bit more foreground with that one. And this, the fish shot, 10 out of 10. I love it. I really, really love this shot. On there. I like the framing of the anemone tentacles, the fact that we've got Nemo, the clownfish, in there. Everything just works on it with that. So absolutely well done with it. So moving along. Sabine, yeah, nice shot. Talked a bit about it on the Facebook group. The decorations and the story behind it in Barcelona, I think you said it is. I do wonder whether we need just a little bit more below on the shot, but actually that would only be a nitpick on there. I do like it. I like the fact that you've managed to get a clean sky on the shot as well. Maybe just, if it was a nitpick, I would just bring the shadows up very slightly, just to bring in some of the detail down here. But that would be all. Lovely shot. This is underexposed, Anna, on here. So we can see on the histogram, we've got this area where there's nothing in the lighter area. So we can bring that exposure up to try and fill that in a little bit. I think I know what you're trying to get with this. You're trying to get that garden view, but there's a couple of things just to be aware of. this little bit coming in at the top, I don't think is adding much to the image. And I notice you've put your name over part of the image, and I know why you've probably done that. It's to protect the image. That you've already got a watermark down here which is doing that. I would say if you are going to do that, just do it as a very faint watermark rather than something fluorescent, because that just draws my eye away from this scene on there. I think a tighter crop with it as well. Again, undo that. Looking at the aspect ratio, I suspect you've done this on a phone, which means I would suggest you look at something like Snapseed for editing on your phone, and maybe just a tighter image on here. Think about what your subject is of this. I think the flowers are the main subject here, and I would love to have seen this much closer in, maybe just focusing in on a single flower on that. But even that little tweak I've done, I think improves the image a little bit on there. Marit, in Scandinavian, Sweden, I think, on here. I think it's a nice shot, it's a nice composition. I'd like to see a little bit more of this foreground. If you have a look through the past live streams, I've got some about landscape photography, and it talks about having a foreground, a midground and a background, and this is kind of lacking the foreground. It's got a hint of it, so you could probably get that in there. And it's personal preference. I think it's a little bit on the cold side with the white balance, so I would be tempted to just warm it up very slightly, and maybe just bring the highlights down to protect those lighter areas in there, and perhaps a little bit up on the shadows with that. So before, after. Again, it's personal preference on there, but that's the sort of thing I would do with that image, Marriott. Evelyn, now this is what I was saying earlier about having names over part of the image to protect it. You can see here how Evelyn has just done it very faint in there, so it doesn't detract from the image. Personally, I'd rather not see it, but that's the thing. Now, again, a bit underexposed on that, so I would maybe just try and open it up a little bit. Don't want to go too far because it's actually a sort of semi-night image on there with it. Maybe just open those shadows up just a little. Compositionally, I think is the main thing I want to talk about with this. There's a couple of things. If you're going to put it in the middle like this, I don't know whether you could get closer to it. I know this is in Seoul, in South Korea, but if you could get in closer, this bottom section would appear wider and it would lead into the top. More of a triangular shape would look good. The alternative, and I'm not going to be able to do this properly on here because I can't get it completely on there, is sometimes bringing those shots in from a diagonal can also work quite well to give that strong compositional element to it. So maybe have a think about that type of thing with the shot. But it's a nice image, and thank you for sharing it with the group. Same with this one. I think with this, I do a lot of theatre photography myself when we're not in pandemics. The thing I would say about this, I do like the idea of having the lights at the top. But for this, the fact that you've lost the feet at the bottom, I'd rather see the camera down just a little bit, maybe just then have the lights which are there to show it's a stage thing, and put the feet in. Alternatively, come in much tighter on your crop, because we've got a stray hand in there. And if we bring that in, so our main subject is on a 1/3 line, to something like that, and because we're a little bit off the bottom, it doesn't look as though we've just cropped and lost the feet. So something like that, I think, is a better composition for it where you've got your main subject on the 1/3 line. We've still got the theatre lights. We've still got the woman looking in adoringly at what's going on with the performance. Ina Maria, again, nice shot. Love the backlighting on there, as we've talked. I think a slightly tighter crop on this. Take the padlock off. And I think something like that would work better on there. I think that's a better crop for it. Alternatively, and I've not tried this, but I wonder whether just doing, if you're going to clip on one side, clip on all three, and the bottom if there was one coming down as well, maybe something like that. I think I prefer that version though with it. But again, the backlighting is really good on there. Well done. David, I love your photobombing tulip, and this is one thing I always say about photographing flowers. Try and photograph them from below. It just gives that different perspective on them. And Farkas, I love the blossom, the apple blossom on there. I think maybe we could do a pano composition with this on something like that. I think works well on there. How are we doing? Let me see, how am I doing? How many more have I got to do? Oh, still a few. I'm running out of time on here. Like this one, just needs a touch more exposure to it. Astrid, nice shot on that. And I like the fact that you've got the strong diagonal, that you've not been tempted to put it straight. You've used the diagonals on there. I can't make my mind up, Wayne, whether this bottle is photoshopped on or not with it, or whether there's some form of handle behind there with that. But interesting street shot. I do wonder whether black and white works or not. No, maybe, no, I think colour. I think you were right with colour, and that slightly subdued colours on there. Mickey, like this one, I would just be tempted to raise the exposure slightly, maybe a little bit in the shadows on it. I love the fact that on the third line we've got the one tomato that's different. We've got the green one there with that. And similar idea here from David Haslam. But what I would do, David, with this is come in much tighter and just focus purely on those. And I think that, okay, it's a bit blocky from the fact that it's a low resolution image to start with, but that kind of composition I think is much more powerful with that. And same with this sort of thing, David. Come in tight on the image, and again, I can't do too much with that. I think probably just get the bud in up there, and with that, I think that works better like that. Again, it's blocky because I've cropped in on a low resolution image, but if you'd done that in camera, that I think would have been a much stronger shot, David. Marjorique, if I'm really sorry, folks, if I'm getting people's names wrong. I do like this one. It's a little bit, the sky's a bit overexposed, but we can bring that back. The exposure, bring up on there, just to do that. I think it needs a little bit of saturation and maybe just warming up slightly on there. And I'm going to bring those highlights down further. A little bit of vibrance to it. There we go. I think from before to after, just that little bit of extra work in post-production on your image there really helps with that. But it's a nice shot. I like the use of the reflection and the water on there as well. That works well. Torolid. I think this is a little bit too blue for my liking. I think, oh, I don't know now. Oh, these Scandinavian shots always confuse me with white balance. No, I'm going to stick with what it is and get my white balance off the snow. Yeah, it is blue. I like the framing element of the trees all the way around. The reflection on there. It's a really nice shot on there, so well thought through on it. And thank you for sharing it with the group. Wayne, another street shot. Love the expressions on here. Very slightly underexposed, I think. I would just lighten it up very slightly in post-production on there. But I like those. Just be a little bit careful about cropping the hands out of the shot on the edge there. So just maybe either slightly wider or potentially if you come in to that sort of thing. I'm trying to find one where I'm not cropping through somebody's wrist somewhere. Maybe something like that with it. Oh, fingers. Anyway, just think about those sort of things with composition. Andy, I know this was in connection with something else and using long exposures, but it does look like the white balance is off to me. And I can't quite work out. That might be a function of the filter. It can cause a colour cast before now, so I would adjust it something like that with it. Sabine, we talked about this one online. I'd like to see the bases of these. It's quite nice at the base on that one. It'd be nice to see the others. The top bit of the sky is not adding so much, so you could afford to lose that bit of the sky and get the bases in. And I do love the colour of the rest of it down below. That orange sky in there really works well. Again, lovely shot here, Petra. Nothing else I would add to that. It's perfect. Well done. Lots of detail in there. Lots of things for the eye to look at and to travel through. The water droplets, the furry texture, the colours of the flowers and all that. Absolutely well done. Cracking image on there. Mickey, nice shot. The problem with these sort of shots where you've got the white in the background there is it does give a cold colour cast on there, and I think we need to change the white balance up a little bit and just to warm it up to bring them back into a more sensible colour. I would also bring the highlights down on that area at the back and just bring the shadows up. And now just adjust that, try and get a bit more natural. And maybe just a touch on the exposure. So I would go with something like that. It gives it a bit more of a natural look to it. And maybe, no, I think that. So before and after, I think that little effect on there does what's needed on that. So moving on, Paula, this is in Portugal. I'm going to move my default vibrance. I think it's a little bit oversaturated, this one, and I don't say that often. I'm normally saying add saturation. I think it just needs to come down a little bit. Again, nice framing with the tree on there. So general nice view, but I think the tree is actually blocking a little bit. I don't know whether it's possible to go a little bit further to the right on there to see the scene with that. On that one, but that's what I was going to say on there, and that's the last of the images. So let's go and see what's been going on in chat on there with it. Gary saying, are perfect verticals always necessary? Right, yeah, this is an interesting question about verticals. Sometimes you don't want absolutely perfect verticals on things. Sometimes you want a very slight lean in because that's what we normally see. And sometimes if it's absolutely perfect, it doesn't look, it looks wrong. Other times it looks, it's what you need with it. If in doubt, try perfect, and if not, then just just then tilt it very slightly in again with that. It's again, it's personal preference sort of thing on that. But I generally, if it's architectural, you generally find, if you look through travel magazines, travel guides, buildings in there typically have the vertical straight on them. So working on that as a stock photographer, I know if I want to sell it, I want my vertical straight. So I tend to do it that way on there. Right, let's carry on. We've got just a couple of things to say. Oh, right, okay. Right, okay. Yeah, some of the older ones on here. Oh, Robin was saying Arley Hall. Of course, it's Arley Hall, and they were filming Peaky Blinders there. Oh, right, okay. Rick was saying it was Catherine. I got the wrong model, yeah, a bit of a riot to shoot, he says on that in the chat. Okay, right, let's just move on now because I've run out of time. But there's one last thing I need to do, and that is to announce this week's member photo of the week. And I think it'll come as no surprise because I've been gushing over this particular image. But this week's member photo of the week is, drumroll, it's Finding Nemo by Sonia Ooms. And this is how it will appear on the banner this week. So congratulations, Sonia. I'll be changing the image very, very shortly to put your photo in there. So everyone else, keep tuned in, keep submitting your images. Maybe your image will be the image of the week next week. And we've had our last look at the live chat on there. So it just leaves me to say for next Sunday, our theme is intentional camera movement and how we can use that to create more interesting images. It's not just tilting the camera down. I'm going to look at all kinds of aspects of camera movement whilst taking the photo. So that will include panning shots. It'll include zoom shots and things like that. So that's our theme next week. If you've got any of those example images, then do submit them to the group during the week. But if not, please submit your challenge photos. Those of you who are doing before and after challenge, I want to see your before images, and those who've already done your before images, I want to see the ones from this week's video, this week's challenge. Those one subject, 3 rules of composition. So thank you everyone for being here tonight, and as ever, thanks for watching, and until next time, keep making great photos. Bye for now. Right, this is the point I do the alternative ending for if and when this ever becomes a cut down version. So here goes. Thanks for watching this cut down version of Ian's Studio Live. The full version's now in my academy. If you want to join my academy, it's only £6 a month or £60 a year, and you get access to a whole load of resources there. 50 inspiration sheets, studio lighting diagrams, over 100 images which I talk you through on there, lots of information within there, plus a dedicated forum where you can share images and get feedback. So thanks for watching. Until next time, keep making great images, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.